I like to use Obsidian for my writing because it gives me all the flexibilities and extensibilities of the tool, such as linking to different notes, referencing different things, having multiple tabs up. There's loads of options inside Obsidian, but because this is Markdown, you need to export it or do something with the file to make it usable as a manuscript. This is an exported version of the file you were just seeing, and this is inside of Word, so you can see this is automatically referenced, the forward reference, and the Welsh back reference inside of the footnote 2. And I'm using Pandoc to do this, which is something you'd need to install on your device, so you can go to the install button, then download. I'm on Windows, so download Pandoc. There is a community Pandoc plugin, but it hasn't been updated in 9 months, almost 10 months now, and I do find it a little bit restrictive personally, so I do it a little bit different. To bring the highlights and the reference information in, I use Zotero integration, which I did a video on before. I'll leave it in the top right, and you can see when we come in, I have the exact same setup, so it goes to the sources folder with the site key of the Zotero item. The images go to sources, images, and then a folder for the site key, and then names the images. Then we've got an image name. I'm using my Zotero template, and everything else is kept the same. You can see in the sidebar, there's the Zotero template. This is what the plugin is using to bring all those highlights in. Let's bring the highlights in, adds the colors of the different highlights, brings in title, URL, a link, year, adds a class source, which if you don't use metadata menu, which I did a video on, I'll leave that up there as well. If you don't use classes, just remove this line, and then it also brings in the authors. And because I use Zotero for videos as well, I have directors in the authors as well, so it brings those in. Here's a couple I did earlier, so you can see I used the Zotero import to bring in all of the highlights of this file and the images. You can see if we open up the images folder, there's the folder site key, there's the 2 images files. We go to the Welsh, so there's the image file of that one as well. So all of the information is inside of Obsidian. Now I'm going to go to the top and go into source mode so you can see exactly what's going on. And here I have an outgoing link, so it's got 2 square brackets, and then this is the name of the file. You can see it matches here, and this is going to, because of the @ symbol, going to reference the Zotero item. So going into Zotero, I'm inside the UK National Curriculum folder or collection. Then inside there I have a Zotero item. This item is a web page, and if I go in, you can see I've got the PDF of the web page. If I open it up, you can see I've got all the highlights of the web page in there. But if we go to the right, info, citation key, that is the citation key, the Ford UK Teacher 2021, which is what the Zotero integration plugin brought in and created the file name. So I know this file, so this file right here, is linked with the Zotero item. What I've done here is the same thing, but it's 1 square bracket. So it doesn't link to the file in Obsidian because I need the other brackets. But when I use Pandoc, it still knows that this is the citation key, so it uses a markdown citation format. Then in the line below, I've added in footnotes. So these are Obsidian specific footnotes. 1 goes to 1, 2 goes to 2. But because this is a different citation to these 3, this should come up as another citation inside of the bibliography when we export to Word, which is where the Pandoc script gets involved. So I'm going to write Pandoc because I want the script to use Pandoc. Then inside of speech marks, I need to give it the file that I want to change. So I'm inside of my G drive. That's where this Pandoc folder is. It's inside of Pandoc, inside of projects, and I want the ukteaching.md file, which is this one right here, the one that we've got here. I'm then going to put 2 dashes bibliography because I now want bibliography information, and I actually want to use a .bib file. To create a bib file of the entire Zotero library, go to File, then go to Export Library. It will then come up with a format. I'm going to use Better Bib Latex, which is a plugin for Zotero. I'm going to keep it updated, so when I add something into Zotero, the bib file will be updated. Push OK. I'm going to store this in the same folder just to make the path easy, but you can store this where you want. It's going to be called My Library, so save. It's now going to export all of the items inside of my library, so that's every single item in all of my folders. I think it's around 3,000. And now in Obsidian you can see My Library, and it's got a bib sign. If you don't see the file, go to Settings, go to File and Links, and then make sure Detect All File Extensions is ticked on. And just to double check, it's in the G drive, it's in the Pandoc folder, and it's called My Library, and it's a .bib file. So that's now looking at that. So the bibliography is looking at the Zotero library. I then want to use the information information from the library and get the citation information in a CSL file. And again, I need to tell it where all that information is. So I need to create a CSL file from Zotero. This time I'm going to go to Edit, and then Preferences, Cite. Now I'm going to go to the Style Editor. And inside the Style Editor, you can see I've got the Harvard method because that's the one I used to use at uni, but you can select any of the methods inside of Zotero or import your own one. Then Save As. And again, I want to keep the path simple, so I'm going to save it inside of my Pandoc folder. You can see there's the name, and it's a citation style language, so CSL file. Save. And coming back to Obsidian, you can see we've now got the CSL file. Now, of course, once you've done the export of the library and you've done the export of the CSL, you don't need to do this again because the library is going to be updated and the citation file, unless you're going to change the citation style, is going to be the same. So you only need to do this part once. The last bit of the script is basically saying make and then tell it where to make it. So I'm going to make it in the G drive, in the Pandoc folder. I'm going to call it the same thing, so UK Teaching, but it's going to be a docx file. So what essentially I'm doing is creating the same file, but instead of it MD, I'm changing it to docx. I'm on Windows, so I need the command prompt. So push the Windows button or go to the menu, command prompt. And then going to copy, paste, and then enter. If nothing happens and it just tells you to type something, then it's worked. If something happens underneath it, then you'll need to check through the script. Maybe you've got a path wrong, or maybe the path doesn't work, or maybe you've got a file already open. So if I open this and then try and do this again, then it won't work because it's trying to create a file that already exists. So have a look at that error. Now when I click on this, it brings up the document. If we do a little comparison, you can see the backlink that I created has come up, but it's exported with additional brackets, so you'd need to find and replace all of those, which can be a little bit of a pain, which is why I probably wouldn't do this if you're going to write a manuscript inside of Obsidian, which is where the citation format is much more useful because you can still see the name of the file and find it, but when you export it, it actually exports to the format you want. And although these are actually written as footnotes and they happen to be in the same order, this has been exported in alphabetical order, so F is before W, obviously, and this item inside of Zotero doesn't have all the information. You can see there's no authors. Now, when I come into Zotero, you can see this item has no authors, so the citation information is pulled from Zotero. I personally don't publish any academic papers, so if I do want to send it off, I will right-click, go down to Export PDF, and just export the PDF as a file, or I'll direct them to my notes, which are online anyway. So I can publish the notes and then send them the link to whatever it was. So what were we doing? We were doing the UK education, weren't we? So I can click on that one, and then there's the information. There's all the footnotes. You click on the buttons, and it takes you down to the citations. That's what I would do.